Good evening, everybody. Today we are talking about boundaries for the holidays. So we're going to give it a couple minutes, let people come on. This is being recorded, so you can watch it later if you like. A little about me. I am a counseling student currently working on my master's in clinical mental health counseling. My focus is really on holistic wellness and making sure that all parts of the person are well and holistically in line with their goals. So I like to focus on mental health, physical health, and spiritual health, or spiritually, not necessarily religion, but spiritual. So that's my focus, and I really enjoy counseling people through all kinds of different things. So I will be accepting new clients come January. So if that's something that you are interested in, you're welcome to send me a message about it, and I'll be happy to talk to you about it. So, today we are looking at boundaries for the holidays and how to deal with difficult family interactions. So, difficult family members, difficult comments, different things like that. That's what we're going to be talking about this evening. I felt it was pretty apt timing because Thanksgiving is 2 days away here in the US. So, that's fun. And a lot of times, big holidays come with difficult family interactions. So, we'll give everybody a couple more minutes to show up and then we'll get started. I am also a certified health coach and a certified fitness instructor. So, all of those things together create my wellness practice, or they will when I'm graduated with my master's. So, that's fun. So, today, we're talking about boundaries for the holidays and how to deal with difficult family interactions. We're going to be looking at four different areas. So, boundaries related to parenting and or personal life choices and how we deal with those comments and different interactions on that. We'll also be talking about hurtful comments um, and just like comments about our appearance or our choices, those kinds of things, and how we deal with those. Time boundaries, how much time we're willing to spend with a group of people, and when we need to leave, and difficult conversations. So, if somebody brings up a difficult topic, how do we navigate that? So those are the four things we're going to be talking about. Parenting choices and or personal life choices, how we navigate those and comments about that, how we navigate hurtful comments about our anything really, and how we navigate hurtful comments related to somebody else. So like if somebody says something about our sibling or a friend or a spouse, whatever, how we deal with that. Um, and then difficult conversations, how we navigate those, and time boundaries. How do we help uh, time boundaries be more solid? So, first, a little overview about boundaries. So, when I'm talking about boundaries, I mean how do we set limits on what we are willing to accept, acceptable behavior from other people in our lives. Now, of course, we can't control other people. We can only control ourselves. So, setting those boundaries and what are the consequences when those boundaries are crossed or if those boundaries are crossed. That's what we can control and our response to the situation. So that's what we're talking about is how do we respond to these situations in a way that preserves our mental health, preserves our family structure, and preserves the relationship with the person if that's something that you're interested in. If you're interested in severing that relationship, that's an entirely different conversation. So, that's what we're gonna be looking at. So, boundaries are really done from a place of love, that you're not willing to allow yourself to be subjected to something that you're not willing to take on the emotions of. So, it's not separating yourself from love, it's doing it out of love. So, every boundary that we're going to be talking about this evening is done from a place of love and is done out of kindness and is done in a way that is not mean or inappropriate, anything like that. It's not meant to start a conflict. In reality, it should avoid a conflict altogether. So, boundaries can be difficult, they can be uncomfortable, but in the long run, they can be a source for change and it can really set you free from expectations and anxiety and a lot of different things that come with unrealistic family expectations or difficult family interactions. So, when you're setting a boundary, a lot of times you will get pushback for it. You'll get anger or guilt or silent treatment, any number of those things. So that's something that if that happens when you're setting any of these boundaries, just know that that's coming from the other person. That's not anything to do with you. That is their unrealistic expectations not being met. And so that's something that they need to deal with. So when you set the boundary and you say, this is what I'm willing to accept from you, from this group of people, from this interaction, know that some people might be upset about that. And it is not your job to manage their feelings. It is your job to protect your own feelings and your own family and your own mental health. And whatever that looks like for you is what's important. So making sure that you're not setting the boundary and then backing off, because then next time they may not respect that boundary at all. So making sure that you set that boundary, are firm with it, and whatever feelings come your way, you're welcome to explain your boundary, but you need to hold firm on that boundary and know that the other people's feelings are their feelings, not yours. You don't need to manage that. Your feelings are your feelings, their feelings are their feelings. They need to deal with that, and they will ask for clarification if they need it. So, just be aware that that is something that sometimes happens when you're setting a boundary. So, let's talk about number 1, time boundaries. So, this is a really big one for people with kids, especially kids who are still napping, but it can be any number of things. You don't have to have kids to need a time boundary. So, let's talk about an example. So, you go to a relative's house for Thanksgiving and you have to leave by 2 o'clock to get your kid down for a nap. And they push you and say, "Oh, it's fine, little Jimmy can stay up. He doesn't need to nap today. It's a special day. Be a little bit more lenient with your schedule," all these things. So they're coming from a place of, "I want to spend more time with you." And you likely are coming from a place of, "I want to spend more time with my family as well." But you know that if you let little Jimmy skip his nap, it's gonna be chaos later, and he'll be grumpy, and then you'll be grumpy, and it just does not make for a good time for anybody. So, you can do a couple of different things with this one. You can set the expectation ahead of time, so you can text whoever the host is, you can, call them, you can tell them the day before if you see them the day before, and just set that expectation of, "We will need to leave by 2 p.m., no exceptions, to get Jimmy down for his nap." And so that way they go into the day knowing what to expect. If that's not possible, as soon as you get there, you can say, "We need to leave by 2 p.m. We need to be in the car leaving by 2 p.m." That way, there's no surprise when it comes time to be leaving. If you are in a relationship and the house that you're going to is a relative of the spouse or your partner, and you feel more comfortable having them have that conversation between the two of you ahead of time. So say to your partner, "We need to leave by 2 p.m. so Jimmy can get down for his nap." We need to make sure that everybody is aware of that so that there are no surprises and that that boundary is easier to hold because Jimmy's probably not going to want to leave either. So that way, that boundary is easier to hold for everybody involved. So have that conversation with your partner today, tomorrow, before you go, and then set that expectation when you get to whatever place you're going. And then if there's pushback, absolutely say, "We would 100% love to spend more time with you. That sounds like so much fun. We really need to get Jimmy down for his nap, so we need to go now." It has nothing to do with us wanting to spend time or anything of that sort. It really is just about his nap. So you can assure them that it is not coming from a place of needing an out, or, I mean, if it is, that's okay, but they don't need to know that. It is coming from a place of, "This is the boundary that we set, and it needs to be held firm." And if there is guilt about that, or if there's anger directed at you about that, again, know that that's not on you. They are responsible for their feelings. They are an adult. They can deal with their own feelings. And if you set up the boundary ahead of time and they're still angry about it, then that's on them. That's not something that you need to manage. That's not something that is anybody's business but their own. If you've ever seen the movie Encanto, I have a good analogy for you. So the character Luisa is very strong. She's abnormally strong, and the entire town asks her to do things all the time. And at one point, this man says, "Luisa, the donkeys got out again." And so she has to go and round up these donkeys. And then later she says, "When I started thinking about it, the donkeys got heavy." And even though she could easily lift these donkeys, just because Louisa can lift this guy's donkeys and get them back into their pen doesn't mean that that's her responsibility. Additionally, if the guy said the donkeys got out again, it means that he is not effectively managing his own donkeys. Do you see where I'm going with this? So, everybody's feelings are their own donkeys. They need to deal with the donkeys. Just because you have the ability to manage their donkeys, their feelings, does not mean that it is your responsibility to manage their donkeys. You get where I'm coming from here? So, set the boundary ahead of time, set expectations ahead of time, have the conversation with your partner of what the boundary is, and have both of you have buy in on that. And don't pick up anybody else's donkeys. Don't take on anybody else's feelings but your own. Okay? So that's time boundaries. And again, you can absolutely say, we would love to spend more time with you guys. It would be so great if we could just spend a whole week with you guys. But this is the expectation that we have for our child's nap. And this is what we need to stick to for our own scheduling. So there's that. Also, I forgot to mention earlier, if you have a question about a specific interaction between a family member and yourself or a family member, whatever, put it in the chat and I'll be happy to answer the specific interaction questions. Okay, next, hurtful comments. This is a big one. How many times have we gone to a family interaction and somebody has said something hurtful to us? I think every single one of us has had a instance where that has happened. Whether it if you're single, whether it be are you dating anybody or when are you going to get married? If you just got married, when are you going to have kids? Those kinds of things. Or, any number of hurtful comments about our appearance, about what we're eating, about any one of those things. It happens to everybody and it is really difficult to manage. So, again, when somebody says a comment about us or about a choice that we've made, 99% of the time it is because there's something going on inside them. Has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with misery loves company, right? So if they're feeling bad about some kind of something that's happened in their life, they're going to try and bring everybody into that as well. And sometimes they don't even realize that the comment is hurtful. So in those interactions, if that comment is hurtful to you, absolutely say something. It's not comfortable. It may make you, a little bit nauseous, but saying something like, "Ouch, that really hurt my feelings." Or, "That comment was not really helpful and I didn't appreciate that." That can start a dialogue between you and the other person. And it can help gain closeness with that person. Now, if that's not something that you're interested in, if you would rather not have a dialogue with that person, you have every right to say, "That comment really hurt. I need to step away for a minute and recollect myself." And that's okay. Now, again, if that person has a strong reaction to your boundary, that is on them. You are absolutely not responsible for anybody else's feelings but your own. So, if you would like to start a dialogue with them about why their comment was hurtful, absolutely do that. You can say, "Ouch, that comment really hurt." And then have a dialogue about it. Or, "Ouch, that comment really hurt. I need to step away for a minute and work through these feelings." Or, "That really hurt my feelings, and I need to step away from this conversation now." Or, "I'm really not comfortable talking about this. That comment really hurt. I'm going to step away for a minute." All of those responses are completely fine and completely warranted. You do not have to stand there and let yourself be insulted or have comments thrown at you that are not within your comfort zone. You can absolutely say, I'm not willing to be talked to that way. And again, if they have a strong reaction about it, if they say, "Oh, you're just being dramatic. Oh, her feelings are hurt. Oh, you know, she can't take a joke or whatever." That's on them. That is their feelings. Those are entirely their responsibility. And if it continues, if you physically cannot get away from that conversation, you can absolutely say, "That comment really hurt my feelings again, and I'd appreciate it if we changed the subject." And that doesn't have to start a conflict. That doesn't have to be mean or inconsiderate or anything like that. It is just you standing up for yourself and saying, "I am not going to allow myself to be treated this way. I'm not going to allow myself to accept comments about whatever it is." You can even say that. You can say, "I am not willing to accept comments on what I'm eating. I'm not willing to accept comments on my appearance. I'm not willing to accept comments or have a conversation about my marital status. I'm not willing to accept comments or have a conversation about our decision or our child status about having kids or not." And that's acceptable. That's totally fine to say. You don't have to have an explanation. You don't have to have anything. Just saying, "I am not willing to accept comments on blank." And again, if somebody has a strong reaction to that, that's on them. You don't need to own their feelings. Okay? So that's hurtful comments. You can absolutely remove yourself from the situation. You can shut them down and say, "I'm not willing to accept comments on that," or "That really hurt my feelings," and then let it be. And you can even change the conversation and say, "That comment really hurt my feelings. I'd like to talk about something else right now." And they can apologize or not, and that's on them. Again, you are a wonderful person and you are a beautiful person. And if they have comments about anything going on in your life, that's on them. You don't need to validate yourself to them. You don't need to validate yourself to anybody. You know that you're an awesome person. You know that you're exactly where you need to be in your life, and that is not anybody else's business but your own. Now, if you are willing to have a conversation about those things, absolutely, totally fine. Have a conversation about those things. If it's somebody that you feel close to and you feel like you want to have a conversation about those things, but you don't have to. You absolutely do not have to open yourself up to comments like that, to conversations like that about personal matters that are none of their business. You can even make it awkward if you want to and say, "Oh, I didn't realize we were talking about our sex lives," when they ask about children. Or, "Oh, I had a date the other day and this guy said he was a serial killer," or something, like, make it really awkward. That's super fun too. Um, yeah, anyways, that's if you want to. That's always something fun. Okay, so hurtful comments. Just know that you're a beautiful person and you don't have to put up with that nonsense. And if they can't see that, then they can go to another room because you're awesome and you don't deserve to open yourself up to comments like that. So just remember that. Okay, so time boundaries, we talked about that. Hurtful comments, we talked about that. Okay, parenting choices or slash choices we made about our life. So that earlier talking about hurtful comments can also relate to parenting or choices we've made about our life, but specifically about parenting. So we all have somebody in our life who likes to make comments about how we parent, right? Or our kids' behavior, or whatever it may be, how we choose to feed our children, how we choose to feed our babies, how we've chosen to birth our babies, whatever it is, somebody's always going to have a comment about it. So here are some really good phrases that can help. "Thanks so much, but I've got this." That is magic. So it kind of shuts them down like, "Oh, sorry, I didn't realize," something like that. Um, and if they continue, say it again. "Thanks so much, but I've got this." You also don't have to internalize their comments. So, whatever it is their experience, and it is entirely different than yours. So, the way they were parented is entirely different from the way you were parented, unless they are your parent, and the way that you choose to parent. And that is okay. And you can say that. You can say, "We have different life experiences and we can make different choices. This is what I have chosen to do." That's it. That's all you need to say. And if they continue, you can absolutely say, "Thank you so much for your comments, but I've got this." And don't take their comments to heart. Remind yourself that their experience is their experience. If they're an older person, their time when they were a parent was different than it is now. And also, your children need you as a parent. They don't need them as a parent. So, reminding yourself that everybody's experience is different, everybody's experience is unique, and you are doing what you know to do for your family. And that's okay. And nobody else needs to be in on that parenting but you. Now, if you are having a difficult interaction with your child and you're asking for advice, that's totally different. But if somebody is offering you unsolicited advice or offering an unsolicited comment, you can absolutely say, "We are different people. We've made different choices. This is the choice we have chosen for our family." And that's it. This is the choice we have chosen for our family. And if it opens a dialogue, cool. If it continues into a judgmental or guilt tripping place or well, that's not how I would have done it, and you're ruining your kids, and blah, 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 which we all know can happen, you can absolutely say, "This is the way I've chosen to parent. Your comments are not necessary. Your comments are not welcome here." Those kinds of things. Now, if that starts a conflict, that's a whole different story. And again, their feelings are their feelings. You do not have to engage in that conversation. You can just let it be and let them deal with their own stuff and going on in their head because that's not on you. Don't grab other people's donkeys. That's not on you. That's on them. You have made the choice for your family. You stand by that choice and you tell them, "This is the choice we made for our family." And that's okay. We're different people. We've made different choices. That's all there is to it. And again, if they decide to be crummy about that, let them be crummy. But don't take that to heart and don't let that ruin your day because they have chosen to be crummy about it for whatever reason. So, there's that parenting choices. Okay, so then choices we've made about our life. Also, similar comments can be made, right? Um, if you're an artist, well, I hope you're, paying the bills or whatever. Or if you're a bartender and somebody says, "Well, what are you doing? Are you going to school? What is your day job or whatever?" And or if you're, going to school for something and somebody says, "Oh, well, you probably should find a backup," or "That's not going to make you any money," or whatever. You don't have to engage in that conversation. You do not have to give that conversation any power. You do not have to take those comments to heart. You can just say, "Well, that's the choice that I've made." And that's it. And that also, it's kind of funny because when you just say, "That's the choice that I've made," sometimes it makes people mad and they're like, "But I want you to fight back." And you're like, "Meh, your opinion is your opinion. My opinion is my opinion. I'm choosing to not engage in this conversation." And that's that. I mean, you don't have to say that, but you can say, "Well, that's the choice that I've made." And that's it. They don't need any explanation. They don't need you to have a dialogue about it if you don't want to. They don't need anything because that's a choice that you've made for your life, and that's okay because you know the reasons you made those choices, but they don't care and they don't need to know that. So just leaving it at that. And, if they continue with the dialogue, just say, "I'm not open to discussing this. This is the choice that I've made." And that's fine. And you don't have to say it in a place of being mean. You don't have to say it in a snarky tone. Just say, "I'm really not open to discussing this. This is the choice that I've made." And just let it be. And again, if they continue, you can absolutely say, "I am really happy to talk to you about anything else, but this is not something that I'm willing to discuss." That's it. And if they continue, you are more than welcome to remove yourself from the situation. You are more than welcome to talk to somebody else. You're more than welcome to pretend like you're drawing a mustache on their face in your brain and just zone out. Or, count the number of freckles on their forehead and just zone out. You don't have to listen to them. You don't have to engage in that conversation. You don't have to allow yourself to be opened up to hurtful comments. You just don't. And if that conversation comes up again years and years and years, you can absolutely engage in that conversation with that person and say, "In years past, this topic has come up. I'm not willing to talk about that. I'm happy to talk about anything else. I'm happy to talk about the weather. I'm happy to talk about that new movie Wakanda Forever, which is fantastic. If you haven't seen it, I'm willing to talk about what you want for Christmas. I'm willing to talk about anything in your life, but I am not willing to talk about X. And that's fine. That's totally cool. You are setting a boundary, and they might be mad about that. They might be grumpy about that. They might be salty about that. But that's on them. Don't pick up their donkeys. They're not your responsibility. Your feelings are your responsibility. Okay, beautiful person? Yeah? All right. Okay. So, the last one, excuse me, that we're going to talk about is difficult conversations. So, this one can be so many things. Divorced families, and conversations about parents, or it can be conversations about someone who's passed away and maybe how their estate is going to be separated. Um, it can be conversations about maybe a family member who's going through a difficult time, those kinds of things. So, here is what I suggest on that. If you know that something difficult has happened in your family this past year or since the last time that you've seen this family member or a group of family members, decide for yourself ahead of time what you are willing to talk about and what you're not willing to talk about. And this goes for anything really, not just difficult conversations. So, if your grandmother has passed away this past year and her estate is still kind of in flux, and that is a conversation that you are not ready or mentally prepared to have that at that time, or just don't want to, remind yourself and say, I, to yourself early before you get there, say, I don't want to talk about my grandmother's estate at this event. There's a time and a place for that. This is not it. And agree to yourself, these are the things that I will not talk about. Okay. And you can agree with that with your partner. And if your kids are old enough, kids as well. Because sometimes people will try and rope kids in to stuff like that, and that's not cool for them. So agree with yourself and your partner, whoever, ahead of time. These are the things that I'm not willing to talk about. These are the things that are not on the table. Okay. And then at the time, if it is possible, if it would not start World War III, you can say ahead of time to anybody who you're willing to say that to, hey, these are the things that I'm not willing to talk about today. I'm not willing to talk about grandmother's estate. I'm not willing to talk about such and such family member. I'm not willing to talk about whatever it is. The fact that, my partner lost their job changes, whatever. Whatever you're not willing to talk about, you can say that ahead of time. Now, if that's not possible, or if whoever is in that interaction is not aware of that beforehand and that conversation comes up, you can absolutely say, this is a wonderful day and I am so happy to see you today. I really don't want to talk about that right now. And that's it. That is all you have to say. And if they continue, just say, I said I didn't want to talk about that and I really did mean it. So I'm going to remove myself and I will come back when you want to talk about something different. And if they insist, you can absolutely remove yourself from the situation. You can also do it pretty quickly so they kind of don't really notice. So, like, if Grandpa Joe starts talking about your grandmother's estate or whatever, or the fact that your partner lost their job, you can say, you know what, this is a great day, and I really am not in the headspace to talk about that right now. How did, your niece's recital go? And just change the subject. That way, you've got a segue and you can move right into something that you are willing to talk about instead of the difficult or uncomfortable conversation. So you can be direct about it and say, this is a great day and I'm so happy to see you. I really don't want to talk about that. Let's talk about something else. And if they continue, you can say, I'm really not in the headspace to talk about that. I'm going to remove myself until you're ready to talk about something else. And that's totally fine. And again, if they have a strong reaction to that, that's on them. That's not on you. You don't need to pick up somebody else's donkeys. Okay. So that's what you need to do with difficult conversations. Now, if you walk into a difficult conversation, you can do a couple of different things. You can not engage. You can turn around and walk out, take a walk down the block, and you can say to somebody who's there, This conversation is not one that I'm willing to have today. I'm going to take a walk and come back when it's done. And that's okay. And if somebody wants to engage with you about it later, you are welcome to do that. Or you can say, you know, I am choosing to stay in a good headspace today. And that conversation would take me into a not a great headspace. So I just don't want to talk about it. That's all you have to say. That's it. That's all you have to say. You don't have to give a further explanation. You don't have to get super deep into it. You don't even have to allow yourself to accept comments about that. You can just say, I'm not willing to have that conversation today. That's it. I'm not in the headspace to have that conversation. I would like to stay in a good headspace. That's it. That's all you have to say. Um, if you, yeah, that's it. So if you hear comments later about any of your boundaries or reactions, you absolutely do not have to accept those comments. You can just let them float out of your ear. You don't have to engage with them. You don't have to bring them into your heart. You don't have to do anything with them. Again, those people's feelings are their feelings, and that is all them. You do not have to pick up their donkeys. My mom always says, put it in a bubble and blow it away because it's not yours to take. You don't have to grab it out of the air. You don't have to grab it out of their mouth and put it in your heart. You can let it float on by because it is not yours to take. Yeah? That's about anything, really, not just about boundaries for the holidays. If you have a comment, you hear a comment, you hear something that you're just not willing to accept, just let it float on by. So there you go. That's boundaries for the holidays. I really hope that these are helpful to you, and I hope that you have wonderful holidays, and I hope that you have a restful time and a wonderful time spending time with your family and that it's not stressful for you. If it is, you can also check out my other live video about anxiety coping skills. That one's a great one. And I hope that helps you. And I hope that you stay well. I am accepting new clients in Texas in January. So if you are interested in that, I am happy to talk to you about that. So I hope you have wonderful holidays and thanks for watching.